might have noticed, but Donald's approach to governance, as it were, has always been characterized by a disregard for legal constraints. And yes, in case you were wondering, that is the understatement of the last several millennia. But this time, his overreach has exceeded even his own breathtaking ability to overreach. And his new attempts to break new ground in breaking the law and shredding the Constitution have prompted swift legal actions and institutional pushback, thank goodness. His latest attempts to consolidate power by doing things like shutting down oversight agencies and defying court orders, which is more dangerous than you could possibly imagine, reflect a troubling trend that cannot go unchallenged. When asked about this is what Donald had to say.
Some of your plays have raised some questions and had some pushbacks. 19 states' attorneys general filed a lawsuit, and early Saturday, a judge agreed with them to restrict Elon Musk and his government efficiency team, Doge, from accessing Treasury Department payment and data systems. They said there was a risk of irreparable harm. What do you make of that? And does that slow you down on what you want to do?
No, I disagree with it 100%. I think it's crazy, and we have to solve the efficiency problem. We have to solve the fraud, waste, abuse, all the things that have gone into the government. You take a look at the USAID. Well, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of money that's going to places where it shouldn't be going, where if I read a list, you'd say this is ridiculous, and you've read the same lists, and there are many that you haven't even seen. It's crazy. It's a big scam. Now, there's some good money, and we can do that through any one of a number. I think I'd rather give it to Marco Rubio over at the State Department. Let him take care of the few good ones. So I don't know if it's kickbacks or what's going on, but the people, look, I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
What in the world does Elon Musk have over Donald Trump? I'm beginning to wonder. Okay, first of all, was there a moment of self-awareness there? Did he say he was crazy? No, he said that it's crazy for a federal judge to do the job of a federal judge, which is to rein in an out of control administration, which is doing illegal and unconstitutional things. Oh, the horror. I would say, please wake me up when this cretin stops saying the words fraud and waste. But then I realized I would probably be asleep for a very, very, very long time. All right. So this is what's crazy. Well, I can't really narrow it down. Here's one thing that's crazy. Remember when Donald and Musk claimed they were just quote unquote cutting wastes from USAID? Turns out it might be a little bit more personal than that. Also, if you want to cut waste from an agency, you don't destroy it, obliterate it, and fire 95 or 97% of its staff. Okay. It's like kind of overkill. So the reason they're going after USAID is multifaceted, but one reason is to stall accountability efforts that were scrutinizing the very war crimes committed by Russia. Yes, our enemy during its illegal invasion of our ally, Ukraine, Russia being the same country that Musk's Starlink system was later allegedly used to assist. That seems bad. As reported by NBC News last Thursday, USAID wasn't just another agency caught in Donald's dismantling spree. It was a direct threat to Musk's own business interests. Tesla holds the stake in Zola, which is a company partially funded by USAID to provide renewable energy solutions in sub-Saharan Africa. USAID partnered with SpaceX to deploy Starlink in Ukraine after Russia's invasion. At first, Musk was hailed for his role in restoring internet access. But then came the backlash because Musk refused to allow Ukraine's military to use Starlink for a drone attack on Russia's Black Sea fleet. He claimed he didn't want to be responsible for escalating the war, but not long after that, Russian troops reportedly began using Starlink within Ukraine itself. That raised serious national security concerns. It also led Democrats in the House Oversight Committee and USAID's Inspector General to launch investigations into Starlink's involvement in Ukraine. And now, for all intents and purposes, USAID is gone, and so too are its investigations. Because with USAID gutted, so is the oversight into how Musk's businesses intersected with global conflicts. What was framed as a cost cutting measure starts looking more and more like a strategic purge. And that's the word we should all be using. These aren't cutbacks, these aren't layoffs, these aren't deferred resignations. These are purges that we're seeing in agencies throughout the federal government. The dismantling of USAID is also being seen as helping war criminals because also cutting all of these agencies has more than one purpose. I didn't really see helping war criminals being something that the United States government would be interested in, but we're being run by them, so I guess that makes sense. Investigations into Russian war crimes in Ukraine have been put on hold due to funding restrictions, leaving nearly 40 experts unable to continue their critical work. The administration's rationale for these actions is framed as cost cutting. But the reality is far more troubling, as it usually is during this Trump regime. These measures systematically dismantle oversight mechanisms and erode U.S. Global credibility to the extent we have any anymore. Now, while USAID employees were in court fighting for their jobs on Friday, crews were spotted removing USAID's signage from its DC headquarters. At least they have their priorities straight. The agency's lease has now been handed over to Customs and Border Protection, which is kind of the opposite. It's sort of like diametrically opposite to USAID, ICE, and Customs and Border Protection. Take a look at this clip. But the dismantling of USAID is not the only development that happened over the weekend. We have a very alarming development about involving the abrupt takeover of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, which was created to safeguard consumers from predatory financial practices. We can't have that. Yet, under the new Trump regime, the agency has been rendered nearly inoperative. Russell Vogt, who's Donald's former budget director, has been installed as the acting head of the agency. He also just got confirmed along party lines as the Secretary of Office of Management and Budget. So I guess they're all like part time gigs now, since none of these idiots is really taking any of this governance thing seriously. Votes new directive at CFPB is to cease all investigations and halt new regulations, which seems kind of contrary to the agency's mission. This move represents a significant step towards deregulation, benefiting corporations at the expense of consumer protections. Again, kind of Orwellian, wouldn't you say? Legal resistance has already begun. Thankfully, the National Treasury Employees Union has filed 2 lawsuits against the administration, challenging both the shutdown of CFPB operations and the unauthorized access granted to Doge personnel. Again, Doge is the fictional, fake, illegitimate, unauthorized Department of Government Efficiency that's in the pocket of Elon Musk. The lawsuits aim to restore the agency's ability to function and block further executive overreach. Here's hoping. The reach of Doge, of course, extends far beyond CFPB. It has infiltrated by now several agencies, raising serious concerns about privacy and governance, and raising the eternal question: what the fuck is Elon Musk doing involved in our government at all? In the Treasury Department, as we know from last week, Doge staff was given access to Americans' personal financial data until a federal judge intervened. We'll have to see how long that lasts. In the Department of Education, students' financial aid records were accessed without proper authorization, prompting a FERPA violation lawsuit. At FEMA, disaster relief recipient data was compromised and Musk's team was granted full access. Again, illegal, unconstitutional, unconfirmed, unvetted, no background checks. Kristi Noem's response to these particular developments was revealing. So check it out.
Have you authorized Elon Musk and his team to have access to Americans' personal data that is housed inside DHS?
Yeah, we're working with them at the president's direction to find what we can do to make our department much more efficient. So I think
yes,
it's
they have
important.
access?
This is essentially an audit of the federal government, which is very powerful and needs to have happen. That agency, and one of the things I've been very clear to the appropriators in the Senate and the House is please give me the authority to reprogram funds. There's
Right,
funds
but that's
that are
different from him having access to personal data that is housed
the president has authorized him to have access.
And you feel
to that,
comfortable?
So absolutely.
I remember a time when Republicans were very careful about and worried about the government, particularly unelected people.
Well, we can't trust our
having,
government anymore.
having access to personal data.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But you are the government.
Broken clock. What the fuck? Wait. Okay. Again, it's accidental, but she spoke the truth. We cannot trust this government to the extent that it is one. Also, Chrissy, where's your flak jacket? She has absolutely no authority to be speaking about any of this, first of all. Secondly, I do not give a shit what Kristi Noem believes or does not believe about how federal agencies work or how they're funded. Her beliefs are irrelevant. There are ways that these things are done, and guess what, guys? We know that because they're laid out in the Constitution. Congress has authority over the creation of agencies, over how they're funded, etc. So for that mindless puppy killer to be on our airwaves spouting such nonsense is kind of unacceptable, except I am grateful that she told the truth. We cannot trust this government, and they know it. So, as remarkable as that statement is, I think it's good that we heard it. And the contradiction that she's sort of skating around highlights the broader problems with this administration's approach. It undermines institutions while claiming to save them, while claiming we can't trust them, while doing exactly the opposite of what they claim they're doing. So, over the last several weeks, as we've seen, the judiciary has emerged as a critical check on Donald's power grabs. And on Friday, two key rulings blocked Musk's overreach. Again, part of what's insane here is that he's allowed to be doing any of this in the first place, and that nobody's doing anything in a real way to stop this immediately. Like, he should literally be in prison right now. But again, that's what happens when you so very irresponsibly hand the keys of everything, to a party of fascists. So the first ruling I mentioned at the top of the episode, that was regarding Treasury. U.S. District Judge Paul Engelmeyer blocked DOJ from accessing Treasury payment systems, preventing interference with Social Security, Medicare, and other essential financial transactions. The judge also ordered the destruction of all improperly accessed data. Luckily, another ruling came down on Friday in favor of USAID. A federal judge temporarily halted the administration's plan to place thousands of USAID employees on administrative leave. And the judge found, quote, no statutory authority, unquote, for the removals and ordered all displacement efforts to pause pending further legal review. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, USAID signage is gone from its building. And I would suggest to you that it's not coming back because although, yes, the judge did the right thing, and hopefully this will play out as it should through the courts, the damage has been done here. People are likely dead already, and others are going to die. So these aren't the only countermeasures that Donald and Musk are seeing. Two other lawsuits have emerged. There's the lawsuit about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The union representing CFPB employees has filed suit challenging the administration's attempt to dismantle the agency and block DOJ access to internal systems. After Democratic officials were refused entry to the U.S. Department of Education building, students have now taken legal action against the Department of Education. Watch this.
The University of California student government acted swiftly, suing the Department of Education Friday, accusing it of illegally sharing personal financial information of millions of students with Musk and his workers, violating the Federal Privacy Act of 1974.
It seems like overreaching to me. On the amount of data and the quantity of data.
Stanford adjunct professor Ranjan Nag questions why Musk would need such detailed information for simple cost-saving analysis.
If you want the name, the loan amount, the income amount, the location amount, it's going to be so defined. You're going to know who the person is, who they are, and what their dynamics are. And so really that's not really required for a cost-cutting exercise.
In their lawsuit, the UC students said they, quote, did not consent to their information being shared with Musk or any other Department of Government Efficiency parties.
This is a fundamental idea in data privacy. As the user given permission to access your data record, and which parts of the data record and in what circumstances.
Fundamentals which attorneys for the UC students and California Attorney General describe in detail as they try to get a permanent injunction against releasing the data to Musk and his auditors.
Okay, look, for anybody discussing this on television, anybody speaking to reporters or journalists, your hair should be on fire. It seems like overreach. It is overreach, but it isn't just overreach. It's overreach being done by somebody whose main goal here is to destroy the United States of America. Do you seriously think I'm being hyperbolic? A guy who has no authority, who was not confirmed, who was not elected, is single-handedly installing other people to gain access to Americans' private data for his own malign uses. And you are couching all of this in phrases that completely undercut the seriousness of what's going on. Stop it. Part of the problem here, of course, is that the reaction to such decisions is being greeted with hostility by the Trump regime. And of course, they are starting to hint, and I would say it's more than hinting, that they are simply going to ignore the courts entirely. And that, my friends, is the Rubicon we cannot cross. So many lines have been crossed already. That is the one. That is the one we do not want to find out what happens after that. But again, there's really not much Democrats or any of the rest of us can do about it except pay attention and don't accept any of it as normal, as American, as constitutional, or as legal. Donald's regime, of course, is starting to convey their belief that no judge should be allowed to rule against his administration's decisions because he is not a president. He's a dictator in the making, as is Elon Musk. In a recent tweet, Vance argued that courts have no right to interfere with executive actions, echoing past remarks where he encouraged Republicans to ignore unfavorable judicial rulings. Again, this is not how any of this is supposed to work. Quote, judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power, unquote. Musk actually called a judge who ruled against Donald corrupt simply for doing his job and called for impeachment, and called for impeachment, while Donald suggested that judicial oversight of his policies is a disgrace. He must have been looking in the mirror when he said that. The pushback by Donald is aided by his installing loyalists in key government roles, including Ed Martin, who is, he may win the prize for most embarrassing sycophant of the century. I mean, it's a stiff competition, but Ed, Good work. He's a former January 6th lawyer, now serving as U.S. Attorney for D.C., who is vowed to investigate people based on ethical violations rather than legal wrongdoing, which kind of doesn't sound like it's his job. But you know what? If he gets away with it, why not? The question, of course, is ethical according to whom? Republicans, once wary of defying courts outright, have largely remained silent as Donald consolidates power, or as Elon Musk consolidates power on Donald's behalf, while Donald settles into his senility and senescence and pretends he actually understands anything that's going on. Of course, all of this raises fears that this regime may soon disregard judicial checks altogether, at which point we will have to ask ourselves the very serious question: what now? Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating, because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.